Hey everybody, John Ramdeen with you here in the FN studios, and this is Fight News Now Extra. Robin Black and I will discuss all the happenings in the MMA world. In the news today, the UFC is putting together a sensational 205-pound tilt that will certainly impact the imaginary rankings. An Olympic gold medalist is hoping that his upcoming UFC debut works out better than his first try, and a pound-for-pound great heads back to the gym. Word is the Ultimate Fighting Championship is working on a light heavyweight tilt between former 205-pound champion Rashad Evans and 27-year-old European talent Alexander Gustafsson. The bout is rumored to headline a card on January 24th that will take place in the Mahler's native Sweden. Gustafsson boasts an impressive 16-2 record with wins over Shogun Rua, Matt Hamill, and Thiago Silva, while Suga is coming off back-to-back wins over Dan Henderson and Chael Sonnen. Olympic gold medalist and top prospect Henry Cejudo is hoping that two times the charm, as he is set to make his anticipated UFC debut before the year's end. The standout wrestler was scheduled to face the skilled Scott Jorgensen at 125 pounds in August, but the grappler failed to make weight. UFC President Dana White says he will be happy to give the American another shot as long as it is at 135 pounds. Cejudo will compete at bantamweight when he takes on submission specialist Dustin Kimura on December 13th in Arizona. And great news for the TriStar team, as it seems that welterweight great George St-Pierre has been medically cleared to resume his martial arts training. Although the future is uncertain for the French-Canadian superstar, MMA fans are hoping to see the former 170-pound champion back in action. Rush last saw action in November of 2013, where he defeated Johnny Hendricks by decision to retain his title. Happy to be joined by Mr. Robin Black. Here's George St-Pierre doing what he loves to do in the world, and that's train martial arts. Got back to the TriStar Academy. A lot of people want George to come back to mixed martial arts competition. You're not of that opinion. You know what? You're one of the greatest of all time. You've served your time. Enjoy your money. Enjoy your life.
Yeah, well, I'm of the opinion that George should do what George wants. Yes. That's for sure. I think that of every fighter, and that includes the ones that got knocked out 20 times, and some journalist says, this guy should stop fighting. If a doctor tells you to stop, or your family begs you to stop, it's your choice, other than the doctor. But George, if it was me, you're like, man, I was literally the best in the world. I'm handsome, I'm rich, you know, yeah, I do movies. Let's just train martial arts for fun. But I understand that sometimes it's about competition, and sometimes it's about the necessity to train at the highest level. You'll go and roll jiu-jitsu a couple of days a week, but when you want to be the best, you need a reason. You need to be forced to be the best, because in 10 weeks, Johnny Hendricks is trying to kill you.
Well, you know that mixed martial arts, yes, guys are, they're martial artists. They're trying to showcase the skills that they've developed in the dojos, in the training rooms, and showcase it in competition. But for a lot of fighters, they got into MMA for one reason, that is to make money. And right now, there's no better time than the present to make a lot of cash. And Daniel Cormier is one of these guys, and he doesn't even have to step into the cage. He is now the co-host of Fox's show. And you think about that, you just bail on fighting. I know Daniel Cormier is a competitor. He wants to get in there and prove himself to be the best in the world. But every time he steps in the training room, it's not you or I that are punching him in the head. It's Cain Velasquez that's punching him in the head. Yeah. So when you think about the opportunities like Daniel Cormier has, you have to imagine, why would you want to continue to do this? And it's because they're just different level guys.
Yeah, love of it. Like, there's nothing on earth like standing in there. I only fought on little shows, but you're standing in this cage and everybody's looking at you, and the pressure is there. And if you can beat it, if you can make it work, and you can make your body perform in the worst kind of pressure, you feel like a different man after. And for a lot of these guys who did it at a high level that I can't comprehend, they just can't give that up. That's probably why George wants to keep fighting. And for Cormier, he might somewhere in his mind go, you know what? I'm going to go in there and beat John Jones and retired undefeated as the champ. Then I'll be on TV. He might do that. Who knows? Maybe you go do that. Even if he could do that, a year later, he'd be like, no, I got to do it some more. That's where George is at. That's probably where he'd be at too.
Oh, we've talked about it in the past. Rich Franklin has said, unfortunately, I can't retire. I was former UFC middleweight champion. I was the poster boy for the organization for years and years. But unfortunately, I just don't have the funds in my bank account. I took an executive job with ONE FC, hoping to develop mixed martial arts in Southeast Asia. But when you see that Rich Franklin doesn't have enough money, you can understand why Rashad would want to get in there as well. But what do those guys also have in common? Former champions. fighting at the highest level, you can understand why they would still want to get in there and compete.
Interesting. George is a champion, former champion, I guess. Rich Franklin is a former champion. Rashad is a former champion. Daniel Cormier is fighting for the championship. If you take, and George is our perfect example. You take
Cormier
guys,
won that Grand Prix championship as well.
They're champions. He's a champion. And you take guys that have done it all. We've already gone over it. George is already wealthy. Rashad and Cormier have cool television gigs. They do it. These guys love it. It's hard for everybody else to try to understand what would make Daniel Cormier want to get punched in the face by his friend Cormier, by his friend Velasquez, when they could be hanging out drinking beers, not punching each other. But this is who these men are. It takes so much to get to an Olympic level, so much to get to a championship level, that if you weren't driven to do this with every fiber of your being, you probably wouldn't have got there anyways.
George St-Pierre, one of the reasons why he says he competes is to prove to the world and prove to himself that he is the greatest of all time. The problem is there's no way that you can prove that, because, you know, George can go on, you know, continue the run that he's on, remain undefeated in mixed martial arts, come back, beat Robbie Lawler, beat all the rest of the guys, Gunnar Nelson, Rick Story, blah, 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 blah. And the fact is, people are, well, he's not as good as Fedor. There's no way to compare the two. And when you're chasing after that nut, that becomes a dangerous thing.
Yes, it really does. And Rashad is another example. Rashad has been one of the great fighters in the world. People forget very quickly how amazingly talented this guy is, how super talented he is.
And to cut you off, just especially when you go back and look at his stint on the reality show, he was simply a wrestler. And to see his evolution, amazing.
Yeah, and when you see that, when you see guys like that, you know, then there's new guys. There's the new young guys. Now you have to stay at that level against the Gustafsons of the world. It's spooky, it's scary, but these guys are driven to fight. That's why we love them.
However, Rashad Evans, Alexander Gustafsson, sign me up. Rashad, awesome game planning, explosive energy, but Gustafsson may be the future at 205 pounds. That is it for us. Don't go anywhere. More Fight News Now Extra is still coming your way.